So we are here today with another student docent volunteer, Keely. Welcome, Keely. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe why you were interested in being a student docent here at the Johnson?
Sure. So I'm a freshman in arts and sciences. I'm considering a double major in English and something else, which might be theater and might be something completely different at the moment. And I've always loved art history. I'm from Honolulu, Hawaii, and I have a close relationship with the Honolulu Academy of Art. And so I thought being a student docent would be a great way for me to be involved in art history, even if I'm not necessarily majoring in it.
Okay, great. That sounds like a lot of the student docents here, so it's just nice to see a wider variety of students getting involved at art in the fine arts department or art history. So what objects are you going to talk about today?
The pieces I'm talking about are a 9th century scroll of the poet Ono no Komachi, and then sort of farther ahead in the future, a 19th century photograph of the poet Walt Whitman.
Okay.
So when visiting an art museum like the Johnson, one expects to see and contemplate works by visual artists. However, authors, poets, and playwrights unquestionably possess their own brand of artistry, and their work can also make its way into the visual realm. Examples of the combined efforts of artists and writers show up in everything from picture books to illuminated manuscripts. Artists are often invaluable in providing illustration for writers' words. In other instances, artists capture writers themselves. It's fascinating to see how people who devote themselves to describing the world around them can be described by someone else through visual portraiture. To set the stage of how two writers in particular have been portrayed by artists, today I brought with me two different pieces of poetry. The two may seem unrelated at first, save for a few common thematic elements. We'll be exploring some interesting similarities in how the poem's authors have been depicted by visual artists. The first, then. On such a night as this, when no moon lights your way to me, I wake, my passion blazing, my breast a fire raging, exploding flame, while within me my heart chars. The second is a selection from a poem entitled On the Beach at Night. Weep not, child, weep not, my darling. With these kisses let me remove your tears. The ravening clouds shall not long be victorious. They shall not long possess the sky. They devour the stars only in apparition. Jupiter shall emerge. Be patient. Watch again another night. The Pleiades shall emerge. They are immortal. All those stars, both silvery and golden, shall shine out again. The great stars and the little ones shall shine out again. They endure. The vast immortal suns, the long-enduring pensive moons shall again shine. So both of these poems are poetic nocturnes, which means they use the advent of nighttime as a chance to express their passionate and thoughtful emotions. The first is by the 9th century Japanese poet Ono no Komachi, a poet remarkable not only for the quality of her verse, but also for breaking out of patriarchal domination in literature. Like most of her poems, it details the almost masochistic nature of love. On the Beach at Night is more contemporary, written by the American poet Walt Whitman in the late 19th century, and exemplifies his common theme of man's contemplation of nature. Now, Whitman and Komachi would seem to have little in common other than their shared affinity for poetry. However, both happen to be featured in artworks that are part of the Johnson Museum's collection. The poetess Ono no Komachi is a 9th century hanging scroll by the Japanese artist Suzuki Kitsu, that not only features a depiction of Komachi herself, but also includes a transcription of Komachi's famous waterweed poem. Wretched that I am, a floating waterweed, broken from its roots. If a stream should beckon, I would follow it, I think. The poem expresses a lack of motivation and a yearning to be moved about by external forces that seems appropriate for the drifting, flowing Komachi, as portrayed by Kitsu. Now, not much is known about Komachi's life, which might be one reason why the woman in the painting is rather undistinguished. Were it not for the poem written on the top, this could be a scroll featuring a painting of any woman from the time period. This characterless quality may comment on Komachi's career as well. Many other writers after Komachi paid tribute to her through their own works, including, most significantly, Zeami, a master of no drama, a classical Japanese type of stylized theater that has many poetic qualities of its own. His most well-known play was called Komachi at Sekudera, which shows the interaction between priests preparing for the Tanabata celebration, a festival of stars celebrating, among other things, young love, and an old woman they meet in her hermitage. While the other characters initially take her to be nothing more than a peasant woman driven mad by her depression and increasing age, the woman is eventually revealed, through her eloquent speech, to be Komachi. Without her words, Komachi is unrecognizable. The scroll's depiction demonstrates how, though her words were immortalized, Komachi's person was barely known in comparison, as is the case with many writers. Naturally, Walt Whitman, being from a completely different time period altogether, is preserved in a more modern fashion through a photograph. An 1886 photograph of Whitman in Camden, New Jersey by Sophia Wells Royce Williams shows the elderly Whitman retiring in his home. The sepia tones and general washed-out nature of the photograph again give the portrayed author some degree of anonymity. Whitman is too bright and far away for us to see much more than basic facial features. Williams's photograph is particularly notable because Whitman wasn't really a fan of posing for pictures, which fits well with the philosophy put forth in his writing. A transcendentalist equally interested in nature and reality alike, it would not be surprising for Whitman to prefer physically disappearing altogether after his death than being immortalized in a photograph. The picture also shows a different side of Whitman. He has been depicted as an ordinary man taking his ease in a traditional domestic scene, and, looking at this image, one might never imagine him as the wild, outrageous author who used a disorganized free verse and was criticized for his blatantly obscene topics. Once more, like the figure of Komachi portrayed in the scroll, this photograph depicts the other Whitman, the one who existed outside of the pages of Leaves of Grass and his other works. This might have been perfect for Whitman, though, who preferred reality to any kind of false persona, as shown in his poem When I Heard the Learned Astronomer. After listening to this scholar discuss how the skies and the planets work, the weary narrator of the poem mentions, "How soon accountable I became tired and sick, till rising and gliding out I wandered off by myself in the mystical moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars." Since Whitman and Komachi were both admirers of realism, they would have appreciated the different perspectives their portraits provide to those who only knew the writers through their works. Because writers devote themselves to inventing other places, characters, and visions of the world, it's difficult to gain a sense of who they are as individuals. These two pieces are excellent examples of how artworks can supplement biography as incredible historical resources, offering a unique window into the details of others' lives as perceived by those around them.
I thought that was really interesting. I never would have thought to put a 9th century Japanese scroll together with a very intimate photograph from the 19th century. What made you think to put those two works together?
Well, when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for my podcast, I wanted to focus somehow on something involving writers. I had seen the scroll before, and since I'm an English major, it's something that appeals to me, and I found Whitman, which seemed to be the only other work that really featured an author like that, so that's how they came together.
That was a really cool way of putting together your English knowledge with art historical knowledge. That was really, really clever. Well, I know that I certainly learned a lot, but thank you so much for coming in, Keely. That was really great.
Thank you.